The accident. Jake was always careful in his lab. As a human scientist working on a deep space research station, he knew that even a small mistake could cause big problems. But today, something was about to happen that he never expected. The lab was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Glass tubes filled with glowing blue liquid lined the walls. In the center of the room, a metal table held a small vial containing a new experimental serum, one that Jake had been working on for months. This serum was supposed to help crops grow faster on distant planets, but it wasn't fully tested yet, and Jake had no idea how it might react to alien biology. He leaned forward, carefully adjusting the settings on his scanner. That's when Zira walked in. A curious alien girl. Zira was a Xilari, a tall, blue-skinned alien with bright silver eyes and long, twisting antennae. She was a warrior, strong and confident, most of the time. But right now, she was simply curious. "Jake, what are you working on?" she asked, stepping closer to the table. Jake sighed. "It's a growth serum, but it's still unstable. One small mistake and—" Before he could finish, Zira picked up the vial and held it up to the light. "Mom, doesn't look that dangerous," she said, tilting the vial slightly. Jake's eyes widened. "Wait, don't." But it was too late. The accident happens. The vial slipped from Zira's fingers. It fell in slow motion, spinning through the air. Jake reached out, trying to grab it. But crack! The glass shattered against the metal floor, and the glowing blue liquid splashed onto Zira's arms and chest. For a second, nothing happened. Zira and Jake both froze, staring at the mess. Then Zira shivered. A strange tingling sensation spread through her body. Her silver eyes widened. "Jake, I feel weird." Jake grabbed his scanner, his heart racing. "Oh no, the serum, it's reacting with your DNA." Before he could stop it, the changes began. A strange growth begins. Zira let out a small gasp as she felt pressure on her chest. It started as a gentle warmth, but quickly turned into something much stronger. She looked down, and her expression turned to pure shock. Her coconuts were growing. Slowly at first, then faster. The fabric of her uniform stretched, struggling to keep up with the sudden expansion. Jake's face turned pale. "Oh, crap." Zira's skin flushed purple, the Xilari version of blushing. "Gee, Jake, what's happening to me?" Jake fumbled with his scanner, his hand shaking. "I think the serum is supercharging your body's growth receptors, but it's not affecting your whole body, just, He awkwardly gestured at her chest. Zira groaned, covering her face with both hands. "Oh, this is so embarrassing." Panic in the lab. Jake tried to stay calm, but his brain was racing. "How do I fix this?" He turned to his AI assistant, EVA, a floating spherical drone with a soft female voice. "EVA, scan Zira. Tell me what's happening." EVA beeped and projected a holographic scan of Zira. "Analysis complete," EVA said. "Subject's chest area is experiencing rapid cellular expansion. Current growth rate, 10% per minute. Estimated full development in—" "Stop. I don't need the details," Zira shouted, covering her face in embarrassment. Jake ran his hands through his hair. Okay, we need to slow this down. Maybe if I—" Crash! Zira had tripped over a chair, struggling to keep balance. She groaned as she sat up, her face now completely purple with blush. "Jake, I swear, if you don't fix this, I will throw you out of the airlock." Jake gulped. "Right. Fixing it. Now, a new problem arises." Jake sprinted to his workbench, grabbing different chemicals and serums. "Maybe I can make an antidote. I just need time." Zira crossed her arms, glancing down at herself. "Well, we don't have much time." Suddenly, an alarm blared across the station. "Warning. Unauthorized ship AP Proishing. Possible pirate activity. Jake's stomach dropped. Oh, come on. Not now. Zira's eyes narrowed. Pirates. Here. Jake looked at her, then at the lab's security monitors. A small group of heavily armed raiders was heading straight for them. Zira tried to stand, but her new imbalance made movement awkward. Jake, I usually fight pirates. But right now, I can barely walk. Jake cursed under his breath. This was bad. Really bad. Now, not only did he have to fix Zira's growth problem, but they also had to survive a pirate attack. He grabbed a plasma rifle from the emergency locker and turned to Zira. All right, he said. Looks like we have two big problems to deal with. Zira sighed. I think I'm very aware of that. The unexpected growth. Zira sat on the cold metal floor of the lab, arms crossed over her chest, her face a deep shade of purple. The axillary version of blushing. Her antennae twitched in frustration as she struggled to balance herself. Across from her, Jake frantically typed into his workstation, scanning molecular breakdowns of the serum. His human mind raced through possible solutions, but none seemed fast enough. This can't be happening, Zira muttered. I'm a warrior, not some overgrown science experiment. Jake tried not to stare. Tried, but it was hard to ignore the obvious. The serum had reacted strangely with her axillary biology. And now, well, things had expanded beyond expectations. He cleared his throat and forced himself to focus. Okay, Zira, listen. The serum was meant to increase plant size for extreme planetary environments. It was supposed to help humans grow food faster on barren worlds. She looked at him flatly. Does this look like a plant to you? Jake winced. No, but technically, your cells are growing faster than normal. Zira sighed and tried to shift her weight. It didn't help. The extra weight was making movement awkward and unbalanced. Every small motion made her stumble. This is ridiculous, she grumbled. How do I even walk like this? Carefully, Jake suggested. She glared. If I could move properly, I'd punch you. The unstoppable expansion. Jake checked his scanner again. His eyes widened. Zira. Her antennae twitched. What? The growth hasn't stopped. She froze. Excuse me. Jake turned the screen toward her. The holographic model of her body showed real-time changes in her cellular structure. The blue, glowing data indicated a constant rate of expansion. It's still increasing by 5% every minute. Zira groaned. You mean I'm getting even bigger? Jake rubbed his forehead. Look, this wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't design the serum for axillary biology. Zira planted her hands on her knees and tried to stand. She barely managed to push herself up, only to immediately lose balance and crash into a table full of equipment. Crash. Glass shattered. Metal clanked. Jake winced. Okay, that's coming out of my budget. Zira groaned from the floor. This is the worst day of my life. A dangerous reaction. Jake's brain went into overdrive. He needed a way to counteract the serum. Fast. EVA, scan for potential reversal agents, he commanded. The AI drone beeped. Analyzing. Based on chemical composition, the most effective solution would be. Suddenly, EVA's voice glitched, and the screen flickered. Jake frowned. What the? Then, the station shook violently. A loud explosion echoed through the halls. The overhead lights flickered red as an alarm blared. Warning. Unauthorized boarding. DTCT. Jake and Zira stared at each other. Zira's blush faded. You've got to be kidding me. Jake rushed to the security monitor. A group of 5 heavily armed raiders had breached the outer docking bay. They wore mismatched armor, carrying pulse rifles. Pirates, Jake muttered. Great, just what we needed. Zira tried to push herself up again. This time, she successfully stood, though she wobbled slightly. She cracked her knuckles, eyes narrowing. I'd normally take them out in seconds, she said. But with this, she gestured to herself. Fighting isn't going to be easy. Jake grabbed his plasma pistol from the emergency locker. Then let's avoid fighting. Zira arched a brow. You plan to talk them out of rotting us? No, I plan to trick them. The pirate encounter. Minutes later, Jake and Zira stood in the main corridor. The air buzzed with tension as the pirates stormed in, weapons raised. The leader, a scar-faced man with a mechanical eye, sneered. Well, what do we have here? A scientist and his... His eye zoomed in on Zira, and his smirk faltered. Zira crossed her arms and glared. Finish that sentence. I dare you. The pirate hesitated. Jake stepped forward, his face calm. You're looking for tech, right? Something valuable. The pirate grinned. Smart boy. Give us all your research and we might let you live. Jake nodded. Sure. Take it. Zira stared at him in shock. What? The pirates looked surprised too. But before they could react, Jake held up a small vial filled with glowing blue liquid. This is my latest formula, he said. It makes things grow. Very fast. The pirates exchanged glances. So, the leader scoffed. Jake smirked. You don't get it. This isn't just for plants. If anyone gets even a drop on them, well, he gestured at Zira. The pirates looked at her again, specifically at her very obvious growth problem. Zira sighed loudly, rubbing her temples. I hate this plan. The pirate leader took a small step back. You're saying that stuff did that to her? Jake nodded casually. Imagine what it would do to you. The pirates visibly shuddered. Boss. One of the men muttered. Maybe we should just leave. The leader hesitated, then growled. Fine, but this ain't over. With that, they turned and rushed out, practically tripping over themselves to get away. As soon as they were gone, Zira let out a deep sigh. I cannot believe that actually worked, she muttered. Jake grinned. Told you I had a plan. Zira rubbed her temples. I will never live this down. Jake chuckled. Hey, look on the bright side. There is no bright side. Well, Jake shrugged. At least the pirates won't be coming back. Zira groaned. Just fix this already. The problem gets worse. Zira slumped against the lab's cold metal wall, arms crossed over her still-growing chest, her expression a mix of exhaustion and frustration. Her silver eyes glowed faintly under the flickering emergency lights. Well, congratulations, Jake, she muttered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You scared off the pirates. But guess what? I'm still stuck like this. Jake, who had been pacing in front of his workstation, ran a hand through his messy brown hair. I know. I just need more time to figure this out. Zira glared at him. You don't have time. I can't even walk properly without nearly knocking over half the station. Jake sighed and pulled up the lab's biochemical scanner. The holographic display showed a glowing representation of Zira's body, specifically how the serum had caused an overactive cellular expansion. The problem? It was still accelerating. Jake's face paled. Oh, no. Zira's antennae twitched. Why did you say, oh no? What's wrong now? Jake gulped. The growth. It's not just slowing down. It's spreading. Zira's eyes widened. What do you mean spreading? Jake pointed at the screen. The serum's effects are moving beyond just, your coconuts. Your muscles are starting to expand too. Zira stiffened. Wait, you mean? Before Jake could respond, she suddenly felt it. A wave of heat rushing through her arms and legs. Her fingers clenched involuntarily, and she gritted her teeth. Then it happened. Zira's arms flexed involuntarily, and within seconds, her muscles began to bulk up, her usual lean physique transforming into something bigger. Her biceps swelled, her legs grew thicker with strength, and even her shoulders widened slightly. She gasped. Jake, fix this now. Jake panicked, typing furiously. I'm trying. Zira groaned and lifted her massive hands, staring at them in shock. I look like a freaking bodybuilder. Then, the worst part happened. Her species, the Exilari, had an automatic biodefense mechanism. Whenever they underwent sudden stress or overwhelming biological changes, their bodies would lock up to prevent damage. Zara's body froze in place. Her arms stiffened, her legs locked, and her entire form went rigid like a statue. Jake turned around, expecting Zira to yell at him again, only to see her standing completely still, her face stuck in a look of pure mortification. "Zira?" Jake asked cautiously. She didn't respond. He waved his hand in front of her face. Nothing. Jake blinked. Oh, crap. The living statue. Jake snapped his fingers. "Zira?" Nothing. He sighed and groaned, rubbing his temples. Oh, great. Just great. Now she's frozen solid. EVA, the AI drone, beeped to life. Analysis complete. Subject's biodefense system has activated due to excessive body stress. She is now in a temporary paralysis state. Jake's jaw dropped. Wait, you're telling me? Zira's body just shut itself down because it was too embarrassed to function. EVA responded in her usual robotic tone. That is a simplified way to put it. But yes. Jake exhaled sharply. This is getting ridiculous. More trouble approaches. Before Jake could even attempt to fix Zira's condition, another red alert flashed across the lab's monitors. Incoming TRNSMISSION. Pirate ship returning. Jake's stomach dropped. Oh, come on, he shouted. EVA's voice remained calm. Scanners detect that the pirates have brought reinforcements. Estimated number, 20 armed hostiles. Jake turned back to Zira. We need to run. She, of course, remained completely frozen. He sighed. Right. I'll handle this, somehow. Escape plan. Jake rushed to the weapons locker, grabbing a plasma pistol. He needed a distraction, something big enough to buy them time. He glanced at Zira. Okay, I know you can't hear me, but I'm gonna borrow your weapons for this. He carefully unstrapped the twin energy blades from her belt and attached them to his own. Then he did something very stupid. He activated the station's fire suppression system, which also vented random corridors with knockout gas. The pirates, who had just breached the outer doors, suddenly dropped like flies as the gas kicked in. Jake grinned. Oh, that actually worked. But the celebration was short-lived. One pirate, wearing a sealed oxygen helmet, charged through the gas, wielding a massive railgun. Jake barely dodged the first shot, which blasted a hole in the wall. Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap! Jake yelled as he scrambled for cover. Zira remained completely still, her frozen, muscular body locked in place. Jake peeked around the corner. Any time now. Zira. Silence. He groaned. Right. I'm on my own. Zira snaps out of it. Just as the pirate took aim again, Zira's body finally unlocked. She blinked, suddenly back in control of her limbs. Her silver eyes narrowed. She cracked her knuckles. Then, in one swift motion, she grabbed a metal crate and threw it across the hallway. Bam! The crate slammed into the pirate, knocking him out instantly. Jake slowly peeked from behind cover. Well, that's one way to do it. Zira flexed her fingers, still adjusting to her new size and strength. Never, she muttered, glaring at Jake. Speak of this again. Jake grinned. Oh, trust me. I won't have to. You're gonna be galactic news after this. Zira groaned loudly. Jake grabbed her wrist. Come on. Let's get out of here before more of them show up. As they rushed toward the escape pods, Zira muttered under her breath, If you don't fix me soon, I am throwing you out of an airlock. Jake laughed. You'll have to catch me first. Zira glared at him. A bigger danger. The metal corridors of the research station trembled as Zira and Jake sprinted toward the escape pods. Well, Jake sprinted. Zara, on the other hand, was doing her best to move without crashing into the walls. Her newly enlarged proportions made running a challenge. Every step felt heavier, every movement more off-balance than usual. And worst of all, Jake would not stop grinning. "Are you enjoying this?" Zara snapped, barely dodging the low-hanging pipe. "Me? No," Jake replied, clearly lying. "I mean, come on, you have to admit. This is objectively hilarious." Zara narrowed her silver eyes. "I swear, the moment I'm back to normal, I'm going to." Boom. A sudden explosion rocked the station. The walls rattled, and a deafening alarm blared through the speakers. "Warning. Station Kaori compromised. Evacuation protocol activated." Jake skidded to a stop. "Oh, that's not good." Zara groaned loudly. "Let me guess. The pirates did that." Jake quickly checked a nearby control panel. His face paled. "Worse. Looks like their last shot hit the reactor cooling system." Zara blinked. "Meaning?" Jake turned toward her, his voice urgent. "The whole station is going to explode in less than 10 minutes." Zara's stomach dropped. "Well, that's just perfect," she muttered. "The escape plan." Again, Jake immediately pulled up the station's layout on his wrist console. Okay. We're only 2 sections away from the escape pods. If we run, we can." Bang! Bang! A plasma blast narrowly missed Jake's head, scorching the wall beside him. He yelled and ducked, pulling Zara down with him. The pirates had caught up. Well, their leader sneered, stepping into view. His cybernetic eye glowed red. "Looks like you two aren't leaving so easily." Behind him, 10 more pirates aimed their weapons. Jake gritted his teeth. "Seriously? The station is literally exploding, and you're still trying to kill us." The pirate smirked. "We're leaving too, but not without that serum." Jake's fingers tightened around his plasma pistol. He needed a way out. Fast. Zara, however, was done waiting. She stood up. Fast. And for the first time since her transformation, she realized something important. The pirates were smaller than her now. Much smaller. In fact, compared to them, she was a towering wall of blue muscle. Zara blinked. Then she grinned. "Oh," she said, cracking her knuckles. This I can work with." The Battle of the Corridor. Before the pirates could react, Zara charged. She slammed into the nearest enemy like a meteor, sending him flying into a wall. His weapon clattered to the floor. Another pirate swung his rifle at her head. Zara caught it with one hand, yanked it away, and snapped it in half like a twig. Jake watched, his mouth hanging open. "Okay, that's just unfair." Zara grinned as she tossed a pirate over her shoulder like he weighed nothing. "I like these upgrades." The leader snarled. "Shoot her, you idiots." The pirates opened fire. Zara dove behind cover, but she was too big to fit properly. Jake peeked out, firing off a few shots with his pistol. "Zara," he said between blasts, "you are too huge to be sneaky." Zara gritted her teeth. "Then we'll have to try something else." She grabbed a nearby emergency coolant tank, ripped it from its bolts, and hurled it down the hallway. Whoosh! The tank exploded, releasing a cloud of freezing mist. The pirates stumbled backward, blinded. "Run!" Jake shouted. Zara didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed Jake by the waist, tossed him over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes, and bolted. Okay, put me down." "Puke me down," Jake protested, flailing. "No time." Zara shot back. "You're too slow." Jake groaned. "This is humiliating." Reaching the escape pods, they burst into the launch bay, the metallic doors slamming shut behind them. Rows of small spacecraft lined the walls, their engines humming with power. Jake tapped at the control panel. "I'm overriding the system, launching the pods now." The doors to the pirate ship started opening, their figures visible through the thick smoke. Zira stepped into the pod first, and Jake dove in after her, slamming the hatch shut. Engaging launch sequence. Boom. A massive explosion rocked the entire station. Fire and debris filled the corridors as the reactor finally collapsed. The escape pod's engines roared to life, and within seconds, they were blasted away from the doomed research station. Jake let out a long, tired breath. We made it. Zira, her muscles still tense, nodded. Yeah. They both stared out the window as the station erupted behind them, sending shockwaves through space. That was way too close, Jake muttered. Zira exhaled. Agreed. Then, after a pause, she added, Also, you're still on my shoulder. Jake blinked. Oh, right. He immediately scrambled off, muttering something about professional boundaries. Zira rolled her eyes, but smirked. I could have carried you all the way back to civilization, you know. Jake groaned. No thanks. A new problem. As their escape pod drifted into open space, Zira finally relaxed. She turned to Jake. All right. The pirates are gone. The station is destroyed. Now can you fix me? Jake frowned at his scanner. About that. Zira's smile immediately faded. Jake winced. So, remember how the serum was unstable? Zira slowly nodded. Jake turned the screen toward her. It looks like, instead of reversing it, your body is now trying to adapt permanently. Zira's eye twitched. What? Jake laughed nervously. Don't worry. I just need to tweak the formula. Zira grabbed him by the collar. That hicks. It. Now. Jake sighed. This is going to be a long trip home. The escape plan. The escape pod drifted through the endless black void of space, its tiny engines flickering in the distance. Inside, Zira sat cross-legged, her arms crossed over her chest, her massive physique still unchanged. She was still stuck with her oversized muscles and coconuts, thanks to Jake's serum, and she was not happy about it. Across from her, Jake hunched over the pod's control panel, furiously typing into his portable biochem analyzer. His face was tight with concentration, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Zira tapped her fingernails against the metal floor, her silver eyes narrowed. How long, Jake? Jake winced. He hated that tone. The I'm going to break something if you don't fix this soon tone. He forced a nervous chuckle. Not too long. Just, a few minor adjustments to the serum breakdown, recalibrating your genetic structure, making sure your body doesn't explode. Zira bolted upright. Wait, what? Jake waved his hands frantically. No. That was just a figure of speech. Zira growled, standing to her full height, which in her current hulking state made her almost twice Jake's size. Jake gulped. Zira leaned in close, her towering form casting a shadow over him. Jake, she said slowly, her voice a dangerous whisper, if you don't fix this soon, I will personally eject you from this pod and pilot it myself. Jake laughed nervously. Haha. Funny joke, except you don't fit in the pilot's seat right now. Zira's antennae twitched. Then I'll just tear the seat out. Jake turned pale. Right. Working faster now. Super fast. Fixing it immediately. Another problem arises. Just as Jake refocused on his work, the pod's warning sirens blared. VEP, VEP, VEP. Zira's head snapped up. What was that? Jake spun toward the monitor, eyes wide. Oh no. A massive pirate cruiser had just jumped into the sector. Zira's stomach dropped. You have got to be kidding me. Jake groaned. They must have tracked our escape trajectory. The comm system crackled. A deep, growling voice echoed through the pod. Attention, escape vessel. This is Captain Gorick of the Blood Fang Marauders. Surrender immediately, and we will consider letting you live. Jake leaned forward, hitting the mute button. Okay. So, this is very bad. Zira cracked her knuckles. Let's fight them. Jake turned to her, horrified. Are you insane? That's a full battleship. We have a pod with 0 weapons. Zira flexed her arms. I am a weapon. Jake ran his hands down his face. Okay, yes, but you can't punch a starship. Zira frowned. I don't see you coming up with ideas, genius. Jake paused, thinking. Then his eyes lit up. Actually, I have a plan. Zira raised an eyebrow. Oh no. Jake grinned. Oh yes. The crazy plan. Jake grabbed a small vial from his pack, one containing the raw serum that had transformed Zira in the first place. I'm going to make them think this is a deadly bioweapon. Zira blinked. That is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. Jake smirked. Is it? Because it worked last time. Before Zira could argue, Jake activated the pod's external comms. Hey, Captain Gorick, buddy, Jake said, faking confidence. Listen, I'd love to surrender, but there's a slight complication. Silence. Then the pirate captain's voice crackled through. What complication? Jake held up the vial. Oh, just the deadliest biological experiment ever created. The one that, turned my friend here into an unstoppable monster. Zira glared at him. I hate you. Jake ignored her. If you shoot this pod, or if you try to board, I might accidentally release this into your ventilation system. And let's just say you won't like the results. Silence. Then muffled whispers from the pirate ship. You think he's bluffing? I dunno, man. Did you see the size of that lady? She looks like she could rip our ship apart. I don't want to risk it. Then Captain Gorick's voice returned. Fine. Keep your damn mutant experiment. We'll find easier targets. The comm cut out. A moment later, the pirate ship's engines flared, and it disappeared into hyperspace. Victory, but not really. Jake grinned triumphantly. See, works every time. Zira smacked him upside the head. Ow, Jake yelped. What was that for? For calling me a mutant experiment on an open frequency. Zira snapped. Jake rubbed his head. Okay, fair point. Zira sighed heavily and sat back down, the pod creaking under her weight. Can we please just get to civilization so you can fix this already? Jake nodded, pulling up the navigation, plotting course to the nearest medical research station. We should be there in a few hours. Zira exhaled, finally relaxing. Good. The sooner this is over, the better. One last surprise. As Zira closed her eyes, Jake scanned his data. The numbers weren't adding up. His heart sank. The serum wasn't fading. In fact, Zira's body was starting to permanently stabilize at this new size. Jake's throat went dry. Zira. Her eyes snapped open. What now? Jake laughed awkwardly. So, a funny story. He turned the screen toward her. Instead of a reversal trend, the data showed a stabilization curve. Translation. She wasn't shrinking back. Zira's eye twitched. Jake. Yeah. She leaned forward, her massive hand gripping the edge of the pod's control panel. Are you saying, she said slowly, that I'm stuck like this? Jake swallowed hard. Temporarily. Maybe. Possibly. Probably. Silence. Zira took a long, deep breath. Then she exhaled. And then, very, very calmly, she said, open the airlock. Jake screamed. Zira's last-minute heroics. Jake barely dodged Zira's massive hand as she lunged for him. Zyr, wait. Think EABOQT this. He yelped, scrambling backward in the tiny escape pod. Zira's silver eyes burned with frustration, her muscular frame tense as she cornered him against the bulkhead. I am thinking about it, she growled. And I think you're about to go on a spacewalk. Jake threw up his hands in surrender. Okay. But before you toss me out, let's consider all options here. Zira took a deep, steadying breath, but her antennae twitched, a clear sign she was on the edge of losing her patience. "Jake," she said slowly, "fix this now." Jake gulped. I mean, technically, if we get to the research station soon, they might have advanced tech that could." The pod's warning alarm blared. Jake's stomach dropped. "Incoming hostile LOCKDTKTED." Zira whipped around. "What now?" Jake frantically pulled up the external cameras. His eyes widened. The pirate battleship was back. The pirates' return. The Bloodfang marauders had apparently changed their minds about letting Jake and Zira escape. A sleek black cruiser now loomed in the distance, its glowing red cannons charging up. "Oh, come on. I literally just bluffed them away." Jake groaned. Zira cracked her knuckles. "Guess they weren't as stupid as you thought." Jake's mind raced. They were sitting ducks in an escape pod with no shields, no weapons, and no way to outrun a battleship. "Well," he muttered, "we're dead." Zira stood up to her full height, rolling her shoulders. "Not yet. We're not." Jake blinked. "Wait. No, don't say it." Zira smirked. "I have a plan." Jake groaned. "Oh no. Operation Space Brawler." Zira grabbed Jake's toolbox, ripped off the lid, and started scavenging through wires and circuits. Jake stared. "What are you doing?" She tossed him a bundle of cables. "Helping you fix this mess. How strong is the pod's thruster core?" Jake frowned. "Not strong enough to fight a battleship, that's for sure." Zira grinned. "Good. Then we'll make it stronger." Jake's eyes widened. "Wait, you're not thinking about overcharging the thruster, are you?" Zira yanked open the control panel and pulled out the main power conduit. Jake screamed. "Zira, that's our engine power." She ignored him, gripping the cables tightly in her massive hands. "If I can rewire the energy from the core directly into a forward burst, we might be able to launch ourselves at them." Jake's face turned pale. "What? That's the exact opposite of escaping." Zira smirked. "Not if we use it to board their ship." Jake froze. "You're joking." Zira grinned wider. "Nope." Jake groaned loudly. "This is DHEWORSTIDAIVEVR. The launch maneuver." Jake frantically reconnected wires while Zira rerouted the pod's energy system. The ship's AI voice chimed, "Warning, engine systems destabilizing." Jake wiped his forehead. Yeah, we know." The pirate ship locked onto them, preparing to fire. Zira grabbed the manual thrust control. "Ready?" Jake whimpered. "No." Zira pushed the lever forward. The pod's engines screamed to life, suddenly accelerating at breakneck speed. The pirates had no time to react. Boom! The escape pod crashed straight into the battleship's hangar bay, sending a shockwave through the ship. The impact ripped through metal plating, scattering debris everywhere. Jake wheezed. "I'm gonna be sick." Zira kicked open the hatch. Time to crash the party. Storming the battleship. The pirates inside the hangar were stunned from the explosion. Zira charged forward, grabbing the nearest pirate and throwing him like a rag doll. Jake rolled out of the pod, plasma pistol in hand. "Why am I doing this? This is a terrible plan." Zira punched a pirate so hard he flew into 3 others. Says the guy who almost got us killed with that bluff earlier. Jake fired his pistol at an approaching pirate. That bluff worked. The pirate captain, Gorik, stormed into the hangar, his cybernetic eye glowing bright red. "Enough," he bellowed. "You two are starting to annoy me." Zira cracked her neck. "Good. Final showdown." Gorik drew a massive energy hammer and charged Zira head-on. Zira smirked. "Bring it, Tiny." The two collided with an earth-shaking impact. Gorik swung his hammer. Zira caught it mid-air, her muscles flexing as she resisted the force. Jake, meanwhile, was frantically hacking the ship's systems. "Hurry up, Jake." Zira yelled, dodging a second attack. "Wo are ain't going it?" Jake yelled, sweat dripping down his face. Zira finally ripped the hammer away from Gorik and smashed him into the deck. The pirate groaned. Ugh, that was unpleasant. Jake cheered. Yes. Now let's get out of here. Escape. Again. Jake activated the ship's self-destruct system. Zira's eyes widened. Wait, what? Jake grabbed her by the wrist. No time to argue. Run. They sprinted back to the escape pods, for the second time today. As they launched away, the pirate battleship erupted into flames, vanishing into a spectacular explosion. Zira sighed in relief. Okay, now we're done. Jake hesitated. Well, about that. Zira glared at him. What? No. Jake held up his scanner. So, your body is still stabilized at this size. Zira's eye twitched. Meaning? Jake smiled awkwardly. Meaning? Yeah, you might actually be permanently stuck like this. Zira inhaled deeply. Then she stood, looming over Jake like a mountain. Jake. Jake gulped. Yeah. Zira grabbed his collar. You better fix this, or I swear. The pod's navigation screen beeped. Entering medical research station. Jake sighed in relief. Oh, thank God. Zira growled. We'll see. The cure and a new problem. The escape pod shuddered as it entered the docking bay of the Central Galactic Medical Research Station, CGMRS. Bright white lights lined the docking corridor, and through the reinforced window, Zira could see rows of advanced labs, sterile white hallways, and floating medical drones. She sighed. Finally, they were somewhere that wasn't exploding. All right, Jake, Zira said, her silver eyes narrowing. We're here. Now fix me. Jake was already unbuckling himself from the crash sheet, checking his scanner. Yeah, of course. No problem. Just need to find a specialist in accidental interspecies cellular enhancement reversal. Zira crossed her arms, the motion making her oversized form all the more noticeable. You have no idea what you're doing, do you? Jake chuckled nervously. I mean, do we ever? Zira growled. Jaak. Jake held up his hands in surrender. Okay. I'll find the best biotech expert here and get you back to normal. I promise. The airlock hissed open, and a group of doctors and researchers in long white lab coats hurried over, scanning them both with floating holodisplays. An elderly human scientist stepped forward, pushing his glasses up his nose. Dr. Jacob Carter. Jake winced. Yeah. The scientist checked his datapad. We've received your distress beacon. Something about an experimental human growth serum gone wrong. Zira pointed at herself. Does this look like it went right? The old man blinked at her muscular, oversized form. Good heavens. Zira sighed deeply. Exactly. The medical tests begin. Zira was led to a large, advanced scanning chamber, where floating robotic arms ran several full-body molecular scans on her. She sat on a reinforced examination table, arms crossed, looking very grumpy. Jake, meanwhile, was watching from behind the safety glass, nervously tapping his fingers. After a few minutes, the main scientist, Dr. Voss, turned around with a deep frown. Well, he said slowly, adjusting his glasses. This is interesting. Jake's stomach dropped. Why do you sound worried? Zira's antennae twitched. Yeah, what's the problem? Dr. Voss turned the screen toward them. The holodisplay projected a rotating 3D model of Zira's body. The serum has fully integrated with her genetic structure. Zira and Jake stared at the screen. Come again? Jake asked. Dr. Voss sighed. The serum isn't just affecting her growth. It's become part of her DNA. Your friend isn't just enhanced. She's permanently altered. Zira's jaw dropped. Wait, you're saying? I'm stuck like this. Dr. Voss nodded gravely. At least for now. Your body has adapted to this new form. If we attempt a reversal without fully understanding the changes, it could cause cellular instability, nerve damage, or even complete genetic collapse. Jake swallowed hard. None of those sound good. Dr. Voss nodded. They're not. Zira groaned loudly, rubbing her temples. Great, just great. So what you're telling me is that I'm now forever huge, ridiculously strong, and stuck looking like an alien bodybuilder. Dr. Voss cleared his throat. Well, in scientific terms, yes. Zira buried her face in her hands. This is the worst day of my life. Jake's final attempt. Jake refused to give up. Okay, so reversing it completely is dangerous, he said, pacing. But what if we stabilize it? Dr. Voss raised an eyebrow. Explain. Jake pulled up his own data on the serum. Look, right now, Zira's body is still technically growing, just at a much slower rate. That means it's still changing. If we find a way to regulate the process, maybe we can fine-tune her form back to something closer to normal. Dr. Voss rubbed his chin. That could work, but it would require precise molecular recalibration, even one miscalculation. And she could end up even bigger, Jake finished. Zira snapped her head up. No, not happening. Jake winced. Yeah, I know, bad idea. That's why we're going to do this right. Dr. Voss nodded. Then let's begin the process. The experiment. Again. Zira was placed inside a high-tech molecular recalibration chamber, a sleek, circular pod that pulsed with blue energy fields. Jake triple-checked every calculation. Zira took a deep breath. If this backfires, I'm going to haunt you. Jake smiled weakly. Noted. Dr. Voss activated the system. The chamber hummed to life, surrounding Zira with a soft golden glow. Jake and the scientists watched nervously as the system slowly rebalanced Zira's genetic makeup. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Then the alarms blared. Something goes wrong. Again. Warning, the computer chimed. Unexpected cellular variant CDT-KT. Jake's heart stopped. Zira gritted her teeth. Jake, if this makes me bigger. The glow around her intensified. Then, suddenly, the system shut down. The chamber doors hissed open, and Zira stumbled out. Jake rushed forward. Zira, are you okay? How do you feel? Zira blinked. She looked at herself. Her muscles were smaller than before, her proportions more balanced. Jake grinned. Hey, it worked. You're back toe. Then he froze. Zira raised an eyebrow. What? Jake pointed at her antennae. Zira reached up and realized they were now twice as long as before. A horrified silence filled the room. Jake, Zira said slowly. What did you do? Jake laughed nervously. Minor side effect. Zira's eye twitched. She lunged at him. Jake screamed. Final scene. A new beginning. 1 week later, Zira, now in her newly stabilized form, sat across from Jake at a Galactic diner, arms crossed. Her antennae still twitched twice as long as normal. Jake sipped his drink, avoiding eye contact. Zira glared. Fix this. Jake smiled weakly. Maybe later. Zira cracked her knuckles. Jake immediately stood up. I'll start working on it right now. As he ran out the door, Zira sighed deeply and took a bite of her food. Well, she muttered. At least I still look awesome.